Just a test rant video. Comes the Second Amendment. I hear the question, why do you need? Stop. Just stop. Stop. Wrong pretext. Your right to keep and bear arms is given to you by God, your creator, whatever you want to call that person. The Second Amendment is a gate placed around that right to prevent government from intruding or infringing upon that right. I don't have to have a need in order to exercise or enjoy the freedom of my right. The government is required to have a need to take that right away, restrict it, infringe upon it, etc. So if you're asking whether it's just out of mere curiosity or whether you are a gun confiscation person, whether you want all weapons gone, whatever, just stop. It's the wrong answer, wrong question. It's not going to get you the answer you think it is when you ask somebody like me. Why do I need? I don't. I can. Period. Full stop. End of sentence. End of discussion. My right is endowed upon me by my Creator. I can keep and bear arms per my Constitution. I don't have to justify. I don't have to create a need. I don't have to have a weapon in order to hunt to provide for my family, or sporting, or a defense for my house. Whatever defensive argument you think you need to come up with, don't. Just stop. You don't need a needs-based defense in order to enjoy the freedoms and the exercising of your right. And to further it, so here's how I like to deal with the gun grabbers or people who ask the needs-based setup question. So, do you have a need to ask me a question like this? Did you register your question with the local authorities? Did you take the correct course in the safety of asking that question? Did you get that question approved by the authorities? Where do you get off asking that question of me? Did you need to ask me that question? Well, typically it's it's my right, free speech, I can ask whatever I want, etc. Well, okay, great. Well, then the Second Amendment is my right to keep and bear arms, whatever arms I want. I don't have to get anybody's permission. I shouldn't have to ask the authorities, the government, is it okay, may I please, pretty please with sugar on top, have this Barrett 50 cal or Ruger 9mm or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant when it comes to the type of weapon. But if you want to come at me asking me for a need to exercise or enjoy the freedoms of my right with regards to the Second Amendment, well, our rights are our rights, regardless if it's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th. It's irrelevant. It's all of our rights. So if you want to come at me with a needs-based argument in order to justify or try to justify whatever, me keeping and bearing arms, well, then that same question applies to every other right that you have. Why do you have a need to ask me that question? Why do you need due process? Why do you need to face a jury of your peers? Why do you need to have a speedy trial? Why do you need to have the freedom to enjoy whatever religion? Why do you need to have the freedom to assemble? It's not necessary. And if people go to, well, guns kill people. Okay, well, that's great. But then if that's the case, if you want to go with that mindset with the protection of the society, okay, well, words kill people. Words have killed people. I'm not talking, literally, words spewing out of somebody's mouth, making a spear and blowing somebody's heart up. But if words weren't dangerous to the general public, why do we have hate laws? Why do we accept hate laws? If somebody wants to be a dumbass and say whatever dumbassery shit they want to say, great, fine, it's their amendment, or it's their right to do so. If somebody wants to use derogatory words, people want to use racial slurs, sexist slurs, what have you, that's their right to fucking do so. You don't like it, that's your fucking problem, not theirs. If you don't like it because somebody uses a racial slur, if it offends you, so what? What the fuck does that mean? What does it mean to be offended? It means you got your fucking feelings hurt. It means your butt hurt. That means you're a simple-minded fool who can't understand the difference between feelings and logic. If you got your feelings hurt because somebody used a derogatory slur, that's on you. Now, as the person uttering those words, yeah, you own the consequences thereafter. If you've pissed somebody off, if you've offended somebody, whatever, well, that's your consequence to bear. So if I say something mean and nasty to somebody, whether it be a racial slur, sexist slur, just call them a moron, whatever it is, and they get pissed off at it, Okay, it's their choice to get pissed off first and foremost. However, I own the repercussions of uttering those words. But that's my freedom to do so. Why do we have to have laws that restrict any of our fucking rights? We shouldn't. As far as the Second Amendment goes, I'm a supporter of, you want a tank? Buy a goddamn tank. If you want a fully automatic machine gun, buy a fully automatic machine gun. If you have the means to do so, if you can pay whatever it costs for those weapons, then fucking do it. However, I'm also a huge proponent of, if you're a dumbass and do dumbass shit with a weapon, whether it be use it irresponsibly, you murder somebody with it, create havoc, hate, and discontent with it, take your ass to fucking jail. Mandatory 10-year sentence, period. Boom. No plea bargains. None of this other crap of going lenient because it's a first-time offense. No. If that person infringed upon the rights of somebody else, whether wounded them, killed them, what have you, with a weapon, then they deserve to have all their rights restricted. There's consequences to the decisions that you make, but the freedom to make that decision is where the basis of our country was formed. If I want to go do some dumbass shit, I have the freedom to go do some dumbass, or decide to go do some dumbass shit. However, I own the repercussions of those decisions, both good and bad. As far as the rest of it goes, as far as punishment goes, let's delve into that a little bit. So, punishment. What is punishment? When it comes to, committing crimes, that type of punishment. It's prison, probation, parole, etc. That is not punishment. That is the method with which the punishment is executed. However, the actual punishment is the curtailment, the restriction, the temporary suspension, or the permanent revocation of your civil rights. Again, your civil rights were endowed upon you by your creator. He's the one, or she's the one, if you're into that kind of thing, gave you your rights. The Constitution is a fence or a gate placed around your rights that prevents the government from infringing upon them, unless they follow the due process of law. Now, why is due process called the cornerstone of our government, of how we operate, of the sentiment of the United States? It's very simple, actually. And the founding fathers believed this ultimately. Our rights are endowed upon us by our creator, which is a higher being. It's a higher level. If man wants to restrict, temporarily, permanently revoke, curtail them, well, now a lesser being is trying to infringe upon the territory of a higher being. The only way the founding fathers could find a way to justify that is through due process. If man goes through and checks every block in that due process regiment, then man has done everything that they can do to make sure that that person did in fact commit whatever crime, violate whatever. So then at that point, that once they follow the due process and you're found guilty, etc., of committing whatever crime, well, then the punishment is then the restriction, curtailment, temporary suspension, or permanent revocation of your civil rights. That's what prison is. That's what a fine is. That's what parole or probation is. They're restricting temporarily, in most all those cases, your civil rights. They're restricting your right to your right to bear arms, your right to certain speech, your right to certain assemblies. When you're in prison, obviously you can't just go down to the corner store and assemble with whoever you want. That right of yours has been restricted. That right of yours has been curtailed. When you're in prison, you can't exercise your Second Amendment, obviously. When you're in prison, you can't exercise your free speech. So certain speech is curtailed or restricted inside of those facilities. You've had due process. Now, some of your constitutional rights are still there. So if you are accused of committing a crime while inside of a penitentiary, then you still have a due process right. However, all your other rights are curtailed, suspended, whatever. Permanent revocation would be like a life sentence in prison or the death sentence. You're permanently revoked. You no longer have civil rights. That's what punishment is. So it goes back to what I was originally talking about when it comes to the needs-based argument. I'm already being punished without going through the due process procedure of having my rights restricted when it comes to, as an example, buying a fully automatic machine gun. The Constitution doesn't stipulate muskets. That's a dumbass argument to begin with. It doesn't stipulate rate of fire weapons. It doesn't specify what type, whether it's artillery, mortar, weapons, small arms, long barrel. It doesn't matter. It says bear arms. Arms, period. Arms being weapons. So if you want to come at me and say, hey, I need to further restrict your rights, well then, where's your due process in this? Where have I been found guilty of committing a crime to have my rights restricted? Again, The punishment for committing a crime is having your civil rights restricted in some form or fashion. If you want to come in and curtail my right to keep and bear arms, whether it be by type of weapon, number of rounds in a magazine, bump stock, whatever, well then where's my due process? I don't care what Joe Blow down the street did with his bump stock. I don't care what the John Q. Public did out there in a mass shooting and wherever that happened to be, or wherever mass shootings take place. What did I do to have my rights restricted? That guy did something wrong. His rights need to be restricted, curtailed, revoked. He needs to be hung by his toenails and fed to, a bed of ants or, whatever. However, if I've done nothing wrong, where do you get off curtailing my rights? For the general safety of the public? No. General public of the safety, or general safety of the general public isn't my responsibility. It is to a point. I'm a firm believer in my rights end where your rights begin, and your rights end where mine begin. That's what keeps a public, well-organized, whatever connotation you want to use for that. But if you sit there and try to tell me that my needs need to be curtailed, restricted, whatever, because you can't have more than a 5-round magazine, you can't have a bump stock, you can't have an AR-15, whatever it is, whatever that restriction is, well, where's my due process? You're curtailing my rights. You're taking away a portion of my right. Where's my due process in order for me to be found guilty by a jury of my peers in order for that to happen legally? The same with free speech. Hate speech. Hate the laws. It's ridiculously stupid. If words offend you, you're a fucking pussy. Period. I don't give a damn, man, woman, doesn't matter. If words offend you to the point where you have to petition your government to have somebody's rights restricted because it hurt your feelings, which is what being offended is, by the way, you're a pussy. If somebody offends you or something they say is offensive to you, okay, have the discussion with them. Hey, I don't like the use of that word. Okay, now me as the person who uttered it, I have a decision to make. Do I behave civilly and restrict my speech voluntarily when I'm around that particular person? Yeah, maybe. I don't have to. That person can choose that I don't like this asshole, I'm never going to speak to him again, and move on with their life. Okay, your choice. Great. Fine. Nobody's rights are violated. Nobody's rights are suspended or curtailed. 2 adults made a decision, whether it be to have a civil conversation, whether it be decided not to have any more contact with each other, whatever. That's great. That's the way it's supposed to work. You don't go to a nanny state. You don't go crying to your mom because somebody pissed you off and then have your mom go at them and say, you can't say that anymore, and if you do, you go to jail. What kind of horse shit is that? Same with a weapon. If I have a bump stop on my weapon, if I've committed no crime, if I've done nothing to harm another individual or violate somebody else's individual rights, where do you get off thinking it's perfectly legal to violate mine or infringe upon mine? Because you don't like a bump stock? Do you even know what a bump stock is? Most of you don't. Most of you don't realize you can do the same damn thing, get the same rate of fire with your thumb through a belt loop or a rubber band for that case as you can with a bump stock. Bump stocks make it a little more convenient. You can get a little more accuracy when you fire. However, you can get the same rate of fire with your thumb through your belt loop. If you don't believe me, YouTube it. It's there. So what are you going to do? You going to outlaw fucking belt loops? You going to outlaw people putting their thumb in their belt loop? That is some kind of, he's getting ready to fire his automatic weapon, which don't exist, by the way. And he's gonna create mass havoc and kill a bunch of people. Therefore, we must outlaw thumbs and belt loops. Does that sound stupid? That's exactly what your argument is when you try to come at me with violating my individual rights by restricting or curtailing what type of weapon, what attachments to my weapon I can or cannot have. It's none of your goddamn business. If I commit a crime with my weapon, by all means, take them, burn them, melt them, whatever. Put me in jail because I'm the dumbass who did some dumbass shit with my weapon. Great, fine. That's the way it's supposed to work. But if I've done nothing wrong, where the fuck do you get off trying to tell me what I can and can't have? Where? Legally, from a legal standpoint. Oh, it's the law. The law is unconstitutional. Slavery used to be allowed and legal. Was it right? No, obviously. Jim Crow laws were proven by multiple Supreme Court cases to be legal. Do we still have those laws? No. Why? Because they were wrong. Throughout history, you want to talk about case law. People use case law when it comes to supporting a certain judgment by a judge or what have you. Stupidest thing in my world ever. I don't give a damn what some judge 50 years ago decided. He set a precedent, so all other decisions now got to fall under that. What if that decision was wrong? Slavery and Jim Crow laws are prime examples of it. Women's suffrage, another prime fucking example of it. Those laws were wrong. Some judge at some point decided that they were legal, according to his interpretation. Many judges followed it and kept ruling, well, this judge decided this, therefore that's the way we got to rule. No, fuck that. Hate speech, hate it, needs to be gone. If I do something stupid or say something stupid and I piss somebody off or hurt somebody's feeling or make somebody cry, okay, I'll deal with it. The person I offended or person that cried, they'll deal with it at some point. Great. But hate speech, going to jail for hate speech, having my rights curtailed because words? Really? Grow the fuck up, people. Stop giving into these other arguments too. If you're a pro-conservative person like me, by the way, I'm not a Republican. I'm far-right conservative, bordering on libertarian, or I delve into the libertarian world when it comes to a lot of different things, especially like the market. Don't give in to these arguments. Don't sit there and say, well, I need it because of hunting or sports or whatever. Stop. Just stop doing that stupid shit. It doesn't matter what you want the weapon for or why you have that weapon. It's none of their fucking business. If they have a need to take it, go to court against me personally or against you individually. Not a mass law passed by Congress. No, that's ambiguous. It kind of borders on tyranny. If I've done something wrong, great. Take me to court, go through due process. If I'm found guilty, I serve my fucking time. That's me. If you do something wrong with your weapon, if you go out and do some dumbass shit with your weapon, okay, go to court, go to jail, you pay a fine, whatever it is. Death sentence, great, whatever. You did something wrong, you own it. However, if I've done nothing wrong and you've done nothing wrong, and somebody comes at you and asking you, why do you need this or why do you need that? Flip the script on them. Why do you need to ask that question? Did you get a permit from the authorities? Did you petition the government to have the right to ask that question? Well, no. Well, that's stupid. So it's coming at me and asking me, why do I need such a weapon or such attachment for the weapon? It's the same fucking argument in the same fucking base. If you can't understand that, back up and regroup and think about it a little bit. Your rights are not given to you by the Constitution. Your rights are protected by the Constitution. The government has to follow the due process laws in order for you to have your civil rights restricted, curtailed, revoked, or suspended. Period. Full stop. If they don't go through that due process procedure, they have violated your rights. Period. Full stop. Bump stock law, magazine laws, hate speech laws, whatever. They're violating your civil rights without you, the individual person, going through a due process. Period. It's how our government is supposed to work. If you can't see that, you're fucking brain dead. Or liberal. Same thing, basically. Oh, and so before we go there too, I don't like liberals. I don't like progressives. I don't mind Democrats. I disagree with your politics. But I can tolerate a Democrat. What I can't tolerate are liberal progressives or communists and socialists if you want to keep going down that spectrum. If you want to be a Democrat, fine. I have no issue with you. If you want to be a liberal Democrat, we're going to have issues. And the same applies to you Republicans. If you're a liberal Republican, I ain't got time for you. If you're just a regular Republican, you need to define that a little bit more. What do you mean by Republican? Because today's Republicans are not the Republicans of old. Today's Republicans are the 60s Democrats. Our whole political spectrum has shifted to the left. So when you call yourself a Republican, doesn't make a lot of people conservative. There's a lot of conservatives like me that don't consider themselves to be Republicans because the Republican Party has drifted so far to the left, it's alien to me. I'm a small government, civil rights believer. I believe in a laissez-faire economic system. I want the government, federal government, out of my personal business or business dealing with local issues or whatever. That's what the local governments are for, whether it be city, council, state, county, whatever. However, the federal government, our borders out.
They're there to settle disputes between states. They're there to settle disputes between multi-state businesses, or businesses between the state of Indiana and the country of France or whatever. That's what our federal government's for. They're not there to be a nanny state. They're not there to approve who can and cannot get married. They're not there to say who can and cannot have an abortion. That's state level shit. Get our fucking government out of our business. Let me live my fucking life. If I violate somebody's civil rights, great. Have at it. Jail, due process, let's go. If I haven't done anything to violate somebody's civil rights, fuck off. Period. I won't violate yours. You don't violate mine. It's a simple, easy contract. It's a social contract. Get rid of taxes too, by the way. That's just theft. Oh, one last thing. Epstein didn't kill himself. Bye.